Oh dear, the joys of being an entrepreneur, to being a small business owner. You know, you have to be very, very careful about whom you do business with. Now, if you've been watching the news, you probably heard about the SolarWinds hack that happened. It was announced in December. Well, first, a little background. My business has been revolving around selling network security software since 2006, mostly from a company called GFI Software. We've had a wonderful relationship all these years. They do a lot of business with small to mid-sized businesses, not so much in the enterprise, but mostly the small or SMB space, as we call it. For a little history here, back in around 2009, GFI acquired a little company called Hound Dog. Now, they made a product that was a platform for managed services providers, more or less. It was a cloud-based security product. People could subscribe to it, companies could subscribe to it, and they could set up things like patch management and web filtering and more with this product. It was subscription-based, and it really went over well because it was extremely simple to set up and to use, to navigate, and to manage. I liked it because it was one of those products where when people signed up for it, they tended to keep renewing each and every year because they loved the product. They loved all the features I mentioned about it. Unfortunately, GFI sold that around, well, they didn't sell it as I understand it, but they spun it off to a company called Logic Now. And I think around 2015, somewhere around there, Logic Now was then acquired by SolarWinds. And I had quite a few customers that used the GFI cloud product. So there was a lot of confusion going from GFI to Logic Now to SolarWinds. But nonetheless, they kept renewing and kept using the product, but SolarWinds had a different idea. And they wanted to move these customers to a different cloud-based product. It was their own version of GFI Cloud, but quite a bit more advanced. Now, by virtue of being a GFI partner, I became a Logic Now partner, and by virtue of the SolarWinds thing, I was automatically a SolarWinds reseller partner. But to be honest with you, I never sold another new license, to the best of my recollection, once it became SolarWinds. That's okay. I found some alternatives that seemed to fit what I was doing at the time. Now, let's talk a little bit about this SolarWinds hack. That is not exactly the primary reason why I am not doing business with them anymore, but it's certainly a very good one. So roughly in December of 2019, SolarWinds and let it be known that their core product, I believe, is called Orion, which is a platform for companies to monitor, manage, configure their networks. Over 18,000 customers may have been compromised, and they were compromised with malicious software inserted into the Orion platform. As I understand it, somewhere around about 2015, the CEO of SolarWinds opened engineering offices in Eastern Europe. Now, Eastern Europe, it's like Czechoslovakia, Poland, so forth. These places are loaded with SVR people, which is Russian security service people, and there's probably quite a few compromised people out there, especially in Eastern Europe. And as it stands now, it is believed that hack with SolarWinds was propagated by state actors, or AKA the Russians. And here's the thing. In 2017, a gentleman named Ian Trump, as far as I know, no relation to the president, warned the folks at SolarWinds, look, we have some very serious internal security issues that need to be addressed. pertaining especially to these offices in Eastern Europe. And to save money, that's why we believe, or he believed, that SolarWinds opened these offices so they could hire programmers cheaper than they could here. And SolarWinds just ignored him to the point that he gave up warning and quit. But there's others also, I believe, saying that they tried to warn SolarWinds about their more lax security, especially around software that's used by like over 18,000 organizations out there, including our federal government. Also, before that announcement was made, apparently some of the major stockholders dumped millions and millions of dollars worth of stock. So as I understand it, there's now currently a class action lawsuit filed against SolarWinds by investors who bought into the company somewhere between April of last year through December. I think that's the period of time that the malicious software was inserted into Orion and was allowed to spread and grow for quite some lengthy period. So this is not boding well for the future of SolarWinds, whether they remain in business, whether they can recover from this whole PR disaster, how many lawsuits they're going to be facing, what's going to happen as far as like the federal agencies and what they're going to do with SolarWinds is all up in the air, but their stock has definitely plummeted in value. So that is obviously one good reason for me personally, in my opinion, to avoid doing business with SolarWinds going forward. Number two, in 2019, now, if you remember, I said that the GFI Cloud product was subscription-based. So every year, before the subscription came up for renewal, I would contact the customer, are you still using the product? Do you want to add features, users, etc.? And we would talk about it, and we would come up with a price to renew for the next year. And that made me very comfortable because I was in control. If you're reselling subscriptions, the last thing you want is what's called auto renewals. And this product, where if it auto renews and you're the reseller, the vendor would then bill you rather because you're their customer. You're collecting payment from your customer. Didn't want that. Didn't want to be involved with that. So GFI Cloud was never like that. Somewhere in 2019, supposedly, SolarWinds sent emails to its partners saying going forward from this date, everything will be set to auto renewal. Now, I had quite a number of customers, and I started seeing surprise bills. If they wanted to add users or features, I would suddenly get an invoice via email from SolarWinds. I never had that before with GFI Cloud. And then I started getting invoices for, I owe them for these companies' renewals, not even knowing whether they were still using the product or not. And that just made me livid. I had no history of receiving such an email from SolarWinds. I could not find that email anywhere. And I use, I use Google Gmail for business for the back end for our email server. No, and so it's very good on search. And I searched and searched high and low, could not find a single email stating that this is what's going to happen. So what do you do in that situation? Well, I wasn't selling any new customers on this product. I wasn't happy about the fact that customers could just add users and features, and then I would get a bill in later down the road, and then I'd have to get on the phone and say, hey, you owe me X number of dollars because you went over your license and you added 25, 35 more users. And I didn't want to be in the collections game. So they go, well, here's the alternative, but you can turn them over us direct. And then we will make a note not to do that as an option. And I was just tired of it. I had spent time and arguing back and forth with sales reps there and so forth. And I said, you know what? This is simply, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. Okay? That's the bottom line. And I think the straw that broke the camel's back is I had a county government, rather a substantial, large sized county government, wanted to do a renewal with me. And I asked for a renewal. They gave me a price. They turned around and sent a quote directly to that customer at a lower price than what they were quoting to me. They weren't very clear on that. And that customer went direct with them. And that was it. I was done reselling their products. So is that the only major thing? Is it the hack? Is it the billing? No, let's one more thing before we go. That same customer who bought direct, right? So about a week ago, I get a phone call late in the evening from a female that I can barely understand because she has a very thick accent, telling me I better pay up or my services were going to be suspended. She may or may not mention sending the account to collections. Now, mind you, I haven't done a dime's worth of business with SolarWinds since 2019. I thought possibly that it was a call from a scammer because maybe they got SolarWinds customer list, but no. Monday, I think they called again and emailed me with a copy of the invoice, and I was livid. I'm not the customer. I didn't sell. I have nothing going on with you. But then I looked carefully at the invoice, and it was for that county government. They weren't billing me. They were trying to get me to call this customer because they couldn't get a hold of them. They sent me a copy of their bill. Now, I'm pretty sure that may not even be legal to do that. That'd be like sending your cousin a copy of your car payment being past due in hopes you'll help get a hold of your cousin to make the payment. Can't really do that. I'm not sure if the law is different when it's business to business rather than consumer facing, but it sure is a poor business practice. It'd have been one thing if they would have picked up an email and said, hey, Bruce, do you have any way to get a hold of this customer, a phone number or something like that? We're trying to reach them about an issue and we don't seem to have a good number or they're not answering. I'd have been more inclined maybe to help because I'm not a jerk. But if that is the way SolarWinds is going to do business, if they're going to ignore security, if their main shareholders dump stock prior to letting the public know that there was a massive hack, if they are going to pull shenanigans with subscriptions and suddenly change the whole business model without warning you, if they're going to try to make collections for debts that are not even yours to begin with, I think I'm done. I don't even want to mess or hear from SolarWinds anymore. And I can't imagine many organizations even wanting to use their stuff going forward or resell their products as well. But so I thought the bottom line is you got to be very careful about whom you do business with. And it's no guarantee, no matter how much due diligence you do, that it's going to all work out. But trust me, as an entrepreneur, as a business guy, you can never go wrong by putting your customers first. And your customers, your partners, your vendors, put them first. Profits will follow if you make them first. But if you're all about making money from the get-go, then you're probably going to be doomed to fail. So it's kind of a rant. Just wanted to share it with you. I'm your Boomer Consumer, Bruce Naylor. Take care.